Hey everyone, it's Hayes, and in today's video we are going to be ranking the episodes from Miraculous Ladybug Season 4, 1 through to 26, with 1 being what in my opinion is the best episode of the season, and 26 being, in my opinion, the worst episode of this season. And in order to do this, I didn't just do it off my first impression of the season, I watched the season the whole way through again, and in chronological order this time, and wrote notes as I was going, so I've seen the whole thing in chronological order, not Furious Food, then Truth, Lies, Gang of Secrets, Guilt Trip, Mr. Pigeon 72, whatever janky order this season aired in. I have now watched the full thing all the way through in the correct chronological order, and this is no longer my first impression of the episodes. I have seen every single episode at least 6 times by now. Wow, I need to get a life. However, obviously, like I just said then, this is all going to be my opinion. I am not expecting any of you watching this to agree 100% with the places I'm going to put these episodes in. I'm sure some of you will agree generally with some of the placements of these episodes, but I can guarantee there will not be a single one of you who is like, yep, Hayes, that's correct, I got the same thing 1 through 26. Yep, I 100% agree. None of you are going to agree 100% with me. And that's okay. We're all human beings, we're not a monolith, we all have our own opinions and feelings about whatever topic. If you don't agree with me, that's fine. I just ask you to please be respectful of my opinions, and I would love to know where you would rank all these episodes. I can't wait to see your lists in the comments. But again, if you're reading through other people's rankings, please also be respectful in the comments. Besties don't always agree with each other, but besties always listen to each other, okay? So please just bear that in mind. So with that being said, let's get started. Okay, so we're gonna go from worst to best, obviously, we're saving the best for last. And I'm gonna put in place 26, I think we all saw this coming, episode 19, Simple Man. And the reason why I dislike this episode so much is because of Thomas Astruc. When I first watched the episode, and my opinion has changed now, I've rewatched it a few more times, but when I first watched the episode, when I did my commentary video on it, I actually quite liked it. If you go back and watch my Simple Man commentary, I don't remember exactly what I said, but I actually quite enjoyed the episode. Like, I went into the episode thinking it was gonna be a fun filler episode, and it was a fun filler episode. Was it the best written episode of the show? No, of course it wasn't. It was pretty bad, hence why it's last on the list. Mainly because they just chucked all of Marinette's character development out of the window. It wasn't the greatest. Oh, I should have said before, by the way, I'm not going to go fully in depth on every single episode, just going to give like a general overview of my opinions. If you want to know like my full in-depth opinions on each episode, I'd go and watch the commentary for that episode rather than this video. This is going to be more like a general quick overview of what I thought of each episode instead of like a 20 to 40-minute dissection of my opinions about the episode, just like a couple of minutes hopefully on each episode. So it wasn't that well written, and oftentimes how well written something is does play into my enjoyment. I am a writer, so it always plays into my enjoyment usually how well something is written. Like, I have like how much I'm enjoying it, like if it's making me laugh, if it's making me smile, if I'm enjoying where the characters and relationships are going, but then I'm also in the back of my mind I'm like, well, is it actually written well? And it's okay. It's not the worst written episode of Miraculous ever, but it's definitely not the greatest. But I did kind of like it at first. However, the thing that made me dislike this episode and why it's now last on the list is due to Thomas Astruc. So when I made my commentary video, I was like, yeah, I didn't hate it, it was okay. And then a couple of days later, I saw on Twitter he was really going out of his way to defend this episode, saying it was really meta, if you didn't like it, you just didn't understand it. And he said there was a lot of jokes in there aimed at people who are professional animators. I actually made a Miraculous Monday video for this, but called it a roasting session instead of a screaming session. And I looked at all of his tweets and I'm like, this show is for 8 to 10-year-olds. I haven't ever looked at the statistics on that, but I feel like it's okay to go ahead and assume there are very, very few, if any at all, professional animators who are from the age of 8 to the age of 10. Like, fine, fair enough, you put in other jokes and references to make an episode enjoyable to a certain audience, to like hint at something. For example, in Queen Banana, when Ladybug and Zoe are on the Vespa, they reference one of my favourite films, which is Akira. If you'd never seen Akira before, you wouldn't have noticed it, obviously, but it did kind of heighten my enjoyment of the episode because I was like, oh cool, that's a really cool classic anime reference. But everyone else would still be able to enjoy the episode without having to have seen Akira. The same way for episodes like Style Queen and Mr. Pigeon. Whilst they are about fashion, you don't need to know a great deal about fashion to enjoy them. Same with the episode Gamer. You don't need to know a lot about gaming to understand it. Or Riposte with fencing. You can still enjoy it without having to be really good at fencing. So it just seems a bit odd that he kind of made this episode, by the sounds of it, to impress people who are animators when 8 to 10-year-olds are not animators. It seemed a bit odd, and he was really defending it, saying like it was actually really good. If you didn't think it was good, you basically just didn't understand it. I would have had so much more respect for him if he just said, yeah, it was just meant to be a fun filler episode. I'm sorry you didn't like it. He doesn't need to act the way he does. But anyway, that's the reason I dislike it so much. I liked it when I first saw it, but now when I rewatch Simple Man, because of the way he acts, he makes me intensely dislike it. Like the other day, I don't know when this video is going up, but the other day I filled out Cartoon Apocalypse's like quiz thing, no it wasn't a test, form about what we all thought of the season, things like that, and one of the questions was, what's one thing you hate the most about Miraculous? I put Thomas Asterisk. I know it's silly to let this man get to me, but I mean Thomas Asterisk, not Aiden, but he frustrates me so much. I have had to spend an entire year with tweet notifications turned on for him, and he has tested my patience. It takes a very strong person to stay kind on the internet, and I am no longer strong. He is making me lose the will to live. Oh my god. Anyway, moving on. In the next place, at place 25, we have episode 6, Furious Fu. It was fine. I mean, first of all, I think it was a good introduction for Suhan, even though he is a pointless character. Hopefully he's going to actually do something next season, because he did nothing this season. The Kwame's really cute in it. Absolutely love Bark having that bad feeling. Could you have had a bad feeling in Strike Back? That might have helped everyone out in that episode. Thanks, Bark. Also, the Miracle Box Compass. It's a bit of a big brain move for this show, but why didn't they empty out the Miracle Box, draw Shadow Daddy out of his lair with it, make it seem like it wasn't a trap, have him take him back to his lair, and then use the compass to go and find him? I don't know, but I did like how they incorporated Master Fu to come back. At the minute, I do doubt we'll see him again. I am hoping we'll see him in the London special though, please. Please. He didn't get to be in any of the specials, did he? Did he? My brain is telling me no, but I feel like the answer is no. He definitely wasn't in New York because he lost his memory. He wasn't, yeah, there was no time, he spent the majority of, yeah, what am I talking about? He wasn't in the Shanghai special. Please ignore, but I would love for him to be in the London special, but I am worried we'll never see him again. But if this is going to be his last episode, I feel like it was a good last episode for Master Fu. And it also exposed that Cat Noir actually is good at football. Just because he doesn't know the rules doesn't mean he's not good at it. He was pretty good at football. And he also understood how to score a goal. Like, I don't... What a penalty. Penalty. For God's sake, penalty. In 24th place is episode 20, Chillin. Now, I'm not going to judge this on the animation. Usually the animation quality of the episodes doesn't bother me. Honestly, I don't even usually notice because I don't know a great deal about animation, and I also have bad eyesight, so if there are any mistakes, I am usually the last person to notice an animation error. Usually the last person. But I think we can all agree the animation in Chillin wasn't the best, but that's not what I'm judging this episode on. I'm judging this episode for its message, basically. Now, before I carry on, I have absolutely zero problem with the show addressing any big themes like racism. I was very happy they handled it. However, taking my lead from people of colour who have made videos about this, I mean, there are a lot of people split on this issue. A lot of people of colour who watched this episode thought it was really good representation, and it was also confirmed by Winnie it was meant to be about racism. But there are also a lot of people of colour who watched this episode and did not like the way it was tackled, and I can completely understand why. And I think I said this in my commentary video, but when I made this commentary video I was like, But when I made my commentary video, there was no confirmation yet if it actually was meant to be about tackling racism. It now has been confirmed to be about that. And the main sticking point for me is that there were no consequences with the bus inspector. Marinette and Sabine still had to pay the fine. And I'm just trying to think, what kind of message is that sending to its young audience? I know as a fully grown adult, I'm 25, I know not to be racist and just how to treat people nicely in general. However, Miraculous is meant to be teaching children to be nice people, right? And I just feel like it didn't really send the right message that this bus inspector, he got to treat her horribly, be racist to her, basically lie about her, and then Roger also joined in, which was just, right, okay. But then there were no consequences for the bus inspector because they still had to pay the fine. So I was like, which is, so I also think it was kind of poorly written. As well, it had an okay pace, and I also saw a lot of this on Tumblr as well. So Winnie kind of went out of his way on, one of the directors for the show, he went out of his way on Twitter to basically say like it was really good how they started the episode off showing Sabine's culture and stuff like that. However, I did see a lot of people taking issue with how like stereotypical her like morning routine was. So I feel like there are a lot of issues with this episode, and I'm just trying to think about how I would feel, I'm disabled, if they tackled disability discrimination, like they did a full episode of it, how I would feel if they'd done it so poorly, and I would be so disappointed. Like, I have anxiety as well, and I felt like the way they portrayed anxiety in Mega Leech, the way that was handled, was done incredibly well compared to the way racism is handled in this episode. Like, I think even the tiny like little bit of disability discrimination in this episode where Sabine's on the bus and helps the man in the wheelchair, and the whole scene lasts probably like a minute, I feel like that whole minute-long sequence was handled better than the way they tried to tackle racism. I guess the sticking point for me is that they still had to pay the fine. Why would you still have to pay the fine? Yes, I guess Marinette was in the wrong for not getting back in time and taking the tickets, and Sabine not taking them out of the purse before Marinette left the bus. Okay, fine, whatever. But it's just an error. You know, why didn't the bus inspector and Roger say, okay, well, you don't have to pay it? It's the lack of consequences for their rude behaviour, their horrible behaviour, their racist behaviour. That's just like, there was no like follow through, you know what I mean? So yeah, I didn't feel like there was really anything learned, but Sabine was wonderful in the episode. I just hoped for more for her akumatization. I've been waiting and waiting and waiting for her to get akumatized because I love her so much and we don't see enough of her in the show. I absolutely love Sabine. Oh my god, adopt me. I love Sabine, but I was like, okay. I was so sad that this was her episode. I hope she gets akumatized again into Verity Queen, that would be cool. But I did think it was a good Akuma battle though. But it just did leave me feeling quite disappointed, kind of for Sabine and also for the community this episode would have been for, you know? Didn't really seem like it was great for them. Up next in 23rd place is episode 8, Queen Banana. The concept of this episode is convoluted and very odd, however it was meant to be something funny, so I'm trying not to judge it. I do judge some of these Miraculous episodes against different criteria. If they're meant to be a filler episode or meant to be like a plot heavy episode with lots of emotion going on, you can't really compare them the same because they're not meant to deliver the same message. So I didn't really mind it. Obviously it was meant to be funny with the banana boom boom gorilla who was turning everyone into bananas, and with Chloe's banana gun as well. Obviously it was meant to be silly and a bit odd and convoluted, but it was a good episode to showcase Zoe's character. However, I just feel like there should have been a bit more follow through with Chloe and Zoe's relationship. Hopefully we're going to see more of that this next season. I guess though maybe Chloe just isn't ready for it, hence why she was so rude to Vesperia, which doesn't surprise me. I guess I just expect more from Chloe, but yeah, I'm hoping something good is going to happen since episode 27 next season. I can't believe we're getting 27. Is action for the bee. So yeah, it was a good debut for Vesperia with how she helped. And I don't particularly feel that Zoe really overshadows Chloe's character, to be honest. Yeah, it was a decent episode. It's just not really my favourite. It's okay. In 22nd place is episode 2, which is Lies. So Truth and Lies, I feel like they go hand in hand. They're like a part 1, part 2 unofficial opener to the season. But I do feel like, because I can't help but compare them, I feel like Truth is the stronger one compared to Lies. However, I did think it was a good look at Adrian's life and Cat Noir and how like he compares them. Everyone, like as we see in Risk, think Adrian's life is amazing, but he absolutely hates it, and his free time is being Cat Noir. That's what he enjoys the most, and all season we've been seeing that being like taken away from him because of Ladybug's actions. So I liked it for that. However, that being said, even though it was like a companion episode to Truth, I was actually quite surprised Agami ended so quickly. Don't get me wrong, I'm glad it's over because, I mean, I don't like Kagami, as you all know. But also secondly, it also wasn't fair, this relationship, on either Adrian or Kagami, because we all knew Adrian was still in love with Ladybug. However, I did think it was gonna last a bit longer, like compared to Lucanet. Like Marinette knows she's in love with Adrian, and Luca also knows she's in love with Adrian. What is wrong with these two people? However, Adrian, I think, was a bit unsure of himself, and I do feel like a big part of the reason why he liked Kagami in the first place is because she reminds him of Ladybug in both appearance and in some parts of her personality. So Adrian is too sheltered to realise what was going on though, so I did think it was going to last a bit longer. I am glad it's over, but I thought it was going to last longer. I'm surprised it didn't, to be honest. So yeah, and also compared to Truth, I did feel like that opening sequence of all like the little couple scenes, maybe it is because I hate Agami, but I just cringe so much at those scenes. I didn't particularly find it all that enjoyable, and I also felt like Kagami was so out of character in those initial scenes. Kagami during the Akuma attack, just right before she gets akumatized to the end of the episode, is perfect in character for her, but the opening was just so odd to me to see her act like that. I understand she has feelings for Adrian and would act differently around someone she has feelings for. Most people do tend to act differently around someone they have feelings for or are dating, but it was just quite a bit jarring to me personally, in my opinion. Up next, in 21st place, and I feel like a lot of you aren't going to agree with this, it's episode 23, Kuroneko. Okay. I have a lot of problems with this episode, and I don't have a problem with Catwalker or anything, and I did understand what they were trying to do with this episode. I 100% get it, but the major sticking point for me is that this episode is in the wrong place chronologically in the season, and I said this, I'm pretty sure, in my Kuroneko commentary, but it becomes even more painfully obvious when you watch the whole season from start to finish. Because we have 13 to 18 of Ladybug and Cat Noir's relationship breaking down, 19 things are fine, 20 things are fine, 21 things are fine, 22 things are fine apart from she wouldn't tell him why she needed to ring him after she rang him 14 times. And then he does this. When you watch it chronologically, it's like things are breaking down and then magically things are okay again. And then he just decides to basically be a child and not go and fight. If they had made Kuroneko episode 19, it would be so much better. Oh my god, I kind of just want to watch it in that episode. Go from Rocketeer, Wishmaker, then Kuroneko to Simple Man, because that would make, oh my, it would make so much more sense. That is the reason I do not like this episode, because it's in the wrong place. And even further than that, it's okay. It's just because it's in the wrong place, it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for his character, for Adrian's character, although I did like how this episode gave a more in-depth look at his character as well as his relationship with Plag, which we don't get to see enough in the show, so I definitely liked it for that. And another issue I have with this episode is that I just didn't really see why Ladybug wanted Cat Noir back. The whole episode pretty much, apart from initially when she grabbed the ring, she was upset then, and right at the end when she seemed quite happy to have him back. At no point did I really feel like she missed him, that she wanted him back, you know? It was just odd. Like, she seemed quite happy to have Catwalker, and I understand he was a distraction to her because she couldn't think properly for the Lucky Charm. I get that, but I just didn't get the feeling that she missed him, and I don't particularly feel like she was sincere when he came back either. Like, the only time she showed that in the episode, and I feel like it was really shoehorned in, when Ladybug was talking to the child and the child was like, my kitty ran away, I really miss him, and she was like, oh, I lost my kitty too. but I didn't really believe it because she hadn't shown any remorse about him leaving earlier in the episode, really. So I feel like the emotions in this episode were off, particularly for Ladybug. The plot of it was okay. I 100% get what they were trying to do. It was in the wrong place though. It doesn't make sense chronologically. If you watch the season from start to finish, Kuroneko should have been episode 19, not episode 23. I understand they kind of needed a break after Wishmaker because Wishmaker was a huge episode. I do get that. But I feel if they'd gone 13 to 18 as it normally is, then done Kuroneko as episode 19 and then Simple Man and Chillin, I think that would have been fine if we just had one more episode. Because to be fair, Wishmaker, there isn't much turmoil going on between Ladybug and Cat Noir. The big thing is Luca finding out about their identities. So I feel like it would have been okay as episode 19. Maybe I should rewatch those episodes with this as 19 and then straight to Simple Man and see how I feel. But right now, watching it in chronological order, this episode does not make sense where it is. Should have been earlier. So in 20th place is the episode after Kuroneko, episode 24, Penalty. Wow, this episode had a really rushed pace, and I understand after watching the finale why we needed to introduce the rest of the heroes, or at the very least, the rooster hero and the dog hero, because of what happens in Strike Back. Not so much for the ox and goat, really, but okay, I get why we needed it, but all at once isn't the way to do it. I feel like they should have used other filler episodes this season in order to do those debuts in. Instead, just my personal opinion, this wasn't the way to do it. Honestly, I feel like if they were just going to pick one hero to debut in this episode, it should have been Mark, because there was a much bigger focus on Mark in this episode. And I'm not just saying that because he's my favourite character, you all know I love Mark. But this episode quite clearly has a huge focus on Mark. For example, they have the long scene of him and Nathaniel at the start. We see him with amazing football skills in front of Mr. Didier. He gets quite a lengthy chat with Ladybug about his Miraculous. He kind of does really come through and save the day. He's the one scoring goals and stuff. Mark is great in this episode, so I feel like this would have been great for him as a single debut episode instead of all four at once. Also, this episode highlights the fact that there's a massive plot hole in Fury's Food because Adrian does know how to play football, and I also disliked it because in the English dub they call it soccer. You kick the ball with your foot. I don't understand. And another reason why I'm not the biggest fan of this episode, like I was looking forward to it, I was looking forward to like a proper team episode, because we probably won't get one for a while now, but they could have really easily won immediately if Max transformed and used Voyage to get the glasses. They didn't need to play a whole football match. Just saying. In 19th place is episode 9, Daddy Aggressed. This episode had some good things to it. I don't hate about Felix knowing. Of course we know the reason why Felix knows now. I did think it was going to be Lila, although to be fair, I feel like Lila, if she doesn't know for certain, I feel she's at the very least suspicious that Gabriel is Shadow Daddy. I mean Hawk Daddy. I'm sorry. I'll stop. I feel like she's at least suspicious, so I don't care that it was Felix, but the way he found out was just, for me, it's too convenient. I get it's a kid's show, but I was just like, really? Really? That's what we're going with? It was just too convenient for me. There were just some fundamental steps missing out in how he found out that his uncle was Shadow Moth. I was just like, no. Like, I don't mind Felix knowing, but it was just unbelievable, not plausible. However, for this episode, I did like the focus being taken off Marinette for once, and she was being used as the comic relief with Chloe as Marino and stuff like that. So I didn't mind that Marinette and Adrian took a backseat in this episode. It was actually quite nice for a change. I quite liked it. So there were some things I liked, especially with the charms and the follow through of what happened in the previous episode in Queen Banana. Narratively, chronologically, these episodes work well together. My main sticking point for this episode is basically Felix. Like, it was just too easy. Like, I get it's a kid's show, but I'm like, no, I'm sorry. Felix watches one video and then his uncle bends over and he sees the brooches, and Felix just knows those are Miraculouses when, as far as we know, Felix has never knowingly seen a camouflage Miraculous before. Obviously he's seen his cousin with it, but he didn't know that was a Miraculous. You know what I mean? Like, there were just some steps missing out, and I get they only have 20 minutes. I get they don't have time, but I was just like, Yeah, so there were some good things. Like, I really liked the humour and relief in this episode with Marinette, plus with Marinette and Adrian taking a back seat and letting basically Gabriel and Felix be the main characters for this episode. I quite liked that, and I liked the charm follow through. But no, I understand Felix had to find out for the finale, I get that. But this just wasn't plausible in my opinion. Up next in 18th place, you're all about to hate me, depending on whether or not you liked this episode, is episode 22, Ephemeral, episode 100. Oh my god. Okay, I wrote the most notes for this one, so let's just go together and read them out. It had a pretty good opening, good premise with Suhan and Adrian and Viperion. I quite liked it up until Adrian reveals his identity. But I was a bit like, this whole thing is a bit pointless since Luca already knows he's Cat Noir, so why couldn't Luca just go and tell Suhan himself? And tell Ladybug that he knew and that he'd lied to her. I don't know. Like, I want to like this episode so bad, but every time I try I end up hating it even more. Like, we were told it was going to be amazing and unmissable, and I'm like, well, that's not technically true, because if you missed Ephemeral, you would have been fine. It adds nothing to the plot of the show. Like, I do understand why they wanted to do an identity reveal for the 100th episode. I completely get that, because it's a 100th episode of the show. I get it. But I just don't feel like it was done well. Like, to me, this episode just feels like the first bad draft of Cat Blanc, and then a different writer on the team came in, overhauled it, made it so much better, and they got Cat Blanc, and then someone came back to the draft of Ephemeral and for the 100th episode, and they made it. And it was a bad decision. Like, the pacing of this episode is all over the place. They're trying to do a lot in this episode, and whilst it works for the plot of the episode in terms of pacing, the pacing is everywhere. The pacing is good up until Adrian reveals his identity. After that, the pace is gone. We don't know her in Ephemeral. Pace? Who is she? No. It just goes super speedy and rushes through it. There were some really good moments I liked. I love Adrian's reveal, I love Marinette's reveal. I like the stuff in space, even though that didn't make sense. The Akuma being solved did not make any sense. Well, it wasn't even Akuma, sorry, Sass's second chance. Didn't make any sense whatsoever. Okay, because they only changed the time, that wouldn't have changed the year. That, you know what I mean? Ugh. Doesn't make any sense. I also liked Adrian and his dad down in the murder basement with his mum in the fridge. I liked that part. I did like how they showed Marinette's turmoil when she was seeing them change all the time and how Luca helped. But I feel again that was rushed. It was just no. And it's probably my fault that I had high expectations of this episode, but we were told it was amazing and unmissable. So I was ready for something amazing and unmissable. And it was something not that good, and you could have not watched it. It was just, yeah, I also felt like the way Gabriel found out that Adrian was Cat Noir was really convoluted, just by calling her my lady. And I did talk to some people about this in the comments, and they said, oh, well, he says it in English, and for example, because they're French, if he's saying a phrase like my lady in English, that's a dead big giveaway. And whilst I understand what they're saying, everyone in Paris knows that Cat Noir calls Ladybug my lady in English. So surely other people around the city, as a fun thing, would start calling their girlfriends or their partners or their wives or whatever milady. I know we haven't seen any evidence of that, but I don't feel like that's too big of a leap to make. So I just feel it's just odd, and again, like with Felix and Daddy Aggress, just far too convenient for my personal liking. It wasn't the worst episode of the show, but for episode 100, this amazing bombastic episode, I keep saying bombastic because of Gloob, thank you, it just wasn't there. And when I think of this season, there are so many other episodes that overshadow it for me. It's not an episode I go back to rewatch because I'm like, oh yeah, I really enjoyed this episode. Yeah, maybe you really hate me for putting it so low down, but it really wasn't that good. Even if it wasn't episode 100, just a normal episode, if it was episode 95 or whatever overall, I feel like I'd still have the same opinion because it's not that good of an episode. But I was even more disappointed because we were told it was meant to be like the most amazing episode this season. and it wasn't. Up next in 17th place is episode 12, Crocodile. Now I feel like the episodes Mega Leech, Guilt Trip and Crocodile are like a trio together because it's these three friends getting their Miraculouses for the first time, and together as a trio they work really well. However, I feel like the weakest out of the trio is Crocodile. It's not a bad episode, I enjoy it, but it's not like a bit like with Ephemeral, not one I'd go back to watch a lot. However, I did feel like Juleka and Luca's relationship was very sweet, same with Jagged Stone and Juleka, that's very cute as well. I guess in truth we got Luca and Jagged Stone, so now it's time for Juleka and Jagged Stone. We probably won't get to see much development between them because they're only side characters, so we probably won't ever see it again actually. But I really liked this episode for that. Also, it had some funny moments. I like how Shadow Daddy was like, oh, I'll akumatize Luca. No, I'll akumatize Juleka. No, I'll akumatize all the friends. And then back to Juleka. And then he ends up akumatizing the parents. Honestly, kind of for me, the reason I'm not the biggest fan of this episode is because of the Akuma attack in it. Not my favourite Akuma attack. In comparison to what was going on in Mega Leech and Guilt Trip as well. But I thought it was a decent debut for Purple Tigress. Not terrible, but not the best either. In 16th place is episode 7, Soul Crusher. I thought this was an amazingly well done debut episode for Zoe, and I don't think she deserves half the hate she gets, but I'm planning on making a completely separate video about Zoe and actually like a whole commentary on the whole season in general. But I thought her debut was great, and all the emotions from her and the quick development we got from her. It was very quick, but it didn't come off as rushed, so it was really, really well done. And I loved her relationship with the mayor, with Chloe's dad. That was great. Chloe was also funny. Kalki was in this episode. I love Kalki, my favourite Palmy. Oh my god. Kalki is the best. And I also thought the ending to this episode was great. I don't particularly have anything bad to say about it. I know a lot of people don't like Zoe because they view her as a replacement for Chloe. She is not meant to be a replacement for Chloe. She's meant to be a replacement for Queen Bee. There is a difference between Chloe and Zoe and Queen Bee, but yeah, obviously there's a difference. But she doesn't deserve all the hate she gets. I think Zoe is wonderful, but I'm going to talk about it more in a different video. But I think Soul Crusher is a pretty solid episode. Pretty enjoyable, not my favourite. It's not one like that sits rent-free in my head like the way the Guilt Trip Boiler Room scene does. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good episode. In 15th is episode 1, which is Truth. I think it's a pretty decent episode to start the season off with. Is it my favourite season opener? No, I think I prefer the season 3 opener, but I still think it's pretty good. Yeah, I had zero hope for Luca in it lasting, so I'm quite glad it ended immediately, but I do feel really bad for Luca because Luca is absolutely lovely, but I just felt so bad for him. Like, she rings him and she like calls him Adrian, and then one of the Kwamis has sent him pictures of Adrian, then then everyone tells him that her secret is she's still in love with Adrian. I don't ship Luca and I never have done. I've always kind of viewed them as more like a brother and sister, that kind of relationship. Like, I feel like Luca's always going to care for Marinette, but a relationship like that wouldn't work out between them. And I think Luca would probably see him date someone else in the show. Maybe Zoe, maybe Chloe, maybe not Chloe. He deserves someone lovely. Not that I don't think Marinette is lovely, but it's not fair on Luca for her to date him, so I was very happy it ended basically immediately. I was quite happy, and I loved the way Luca's emotions and also Marinette's emotions were done in this episode as well. It didn't have the world's best Akuma attack, but I thought it was decent for the opening of the season, and I also felt like Truth, Lies and Gang of Secrets, the first 3 episodes, just with the episode titles alone, set a really good precedent for the themes moving forward in this season. It set them down really well, and they've been followed really well throughout this whole season, so I liked this episode for that as well. Just not my favourite in general. In 14th place is episode 10, which is Mega Leech. Now, I mentioned this before when I was talking about Chillin, but as someone with anxiety, I know not everyone with anxiety thinks and feels the same. Not everyone's anxiety manifests in the same way, but in my opinion, I feel like the way they portrayed Milen's anxiety in this episode was done really, really well. I really loved it. It's a really enjoyable episode. I go back and rewatch this episode all the time, but yes, I do shut my eyes when we get to the parts where we see inside people's heads. I don't want to see that. I can't do it. It's gross. Oh, why? I never want to see it again. I thought it was a really good debut for Polymouse. I was quite worried after Party Crasher, because in Party Crasher that was King Monkey's debut, but I feel like he was really overshadowed because first of all, Ladybug didn't pick him. It was Master Fu who did it. and also other heroes were present, and I feel like they really overshadowed him. And whilst I enjoy Party Crasher, it's not executed the best, kind of because of that, amongst other reasons. So I was worried the same would happen with Polymouse, because in Guilt Trip and in Crocodile, Rose and Juleka get to shine alone alongside Ladybug and Cat Noir, whereas Polymouse had several other heroes to compete against. I think it was Vesperia, Carapace, Ryuku, Pegasus, plus Ladybug and Cat Noir. So that's 6 other heroes who are already well established and other people arguably might like more, but I feel like in comparison to Party Crasher, her debut was done so much better than King Monkey's debut. Really liked it. And I also really liked the way they also addressed the environmental issues in the episode. Like I said before, I've had tweet notifications on for Thomas Astruc all year. He is very, very passionate about the environment, and obviously it's very important. So he was definitely reflected in this episode, and I feel like the plot addressed the issues of both the environment and anxiety really, really well. Which is why I'm so disappointed in Chillin, because we know they can address issues like this. Like Ladybug's Panic Attack in Strike Back is done so well. In 13th place is episode 17, Rocketeer, and I really liked the focus being taken off Ladybug in favour of Alia and Nino and then Cat Noir as well. It had good storytelling, and I really liked how it had the different style of like the noir thing but with bubbles instead of smoking instead. That was really fun. I absolutely loved that idea. It had a good balance of storytelling and pacing and relationship and characters. Love the style of the episode. I thought it was great, and it also addressed the overall themes of the season of what was going on with all the secrets and lying. I thought it was a good episode. Don't particularly have anything bad to say about it. Honestly, the only reason it's at 13th is just because there are other episodes this season that I've enjoyed watching more than this one. There's nothing really wrong with this episode. I can't remember what I said in my commentary video. I probably did have some criticisms of it, but just in general, I thought it was pretty good. In 12th place is episode 13, which is Optigami. It had a good follow through from Miracle Queen of them finally using their brains and looking at the no Miraculous holders, and I was like, you're gonna do something about it? And they did do something about it. So happy about this. I guess with me, I just gotta learn to be patient. It's like they will eventually look at things that have already happened in the show. It's just gonna take them a while. If I was writing Miraculous, I probably would have opened the season with the heroes' identities, probably, the ones they know. It's probably what I would have started with, personally, because Miracle Queen had just happened, you know? But anyway, I do really like the plot of this episode, but I still question when I watch it. I'm like, okay, well, you've worked out that Adrian is friends with all of these people because you're using him to lure them all here, but have you perhaps thought about someone else who maybe knows all those people who you don't know if they have a Miraculous or not? Might be Ladybug, because you know she has to trust the people, hence why Chloe's not getting one anymore. And also, why hasn't Adrian realised this? I don't know. Like, I know he doesn't know some of the holders' identities, but he knows the other ones, so yeah, I don't know, but I thought it was a great plan with Optigami. I think it was a really, really good plot. I kind of hoped they do it again, basically. However, Thomas Astruc keeps saying, like, Gabriel doesn't do the same plans more than once because he's failed, so what's the point in trying? But I'm also like, well, yes, I see what you're saying, but he has also akumatized the same person 72 times into Mr. Pigeon, so this seems like a really hypocritical argument you're making. Okay. I also liked how this sets up the episode for Santi Bubbler as well. It's a really good before episode for it. Honestly, my main critique of this episode, and one of the things that makes me find it less enjoyable, is the Adrianettes in the episode. I just find it really odd how they're completely pretty much silent in the elevator. They don't speak to each other at all. Like, I don't know. I just feel like those sequences we got of them in the elevator felt so flat to me when there was so much opportunity. You know what I mean? We had like prime real estate for some great Adrianette development, and we got zero! It makes me so annoyed. And they could have quite easily cut out some of the unnecessary scenes in this episode. There were quite a few unnecessary parts to give at least 2 minutes more screen time to Adrian and Marinette stuck in the lift before Alia came. So it wouldn't have been that tricky to do. However, this episode has my absolute queen in it. Had the debut of Lady B. All hail Lady B. Lady B. Oh my god, she is beautiful. I'd marry her right here, right now. I want that hair. I love Lady B. In 11th place is episode 16, Hacken. And I think Alia did an amazing job all season, to be fair, but also in this episode. I was really sad when she had to give it back in Strike Back, but it was for the best. It was going to be too dangerous for her. But I was just like, okay, I understand why Cat Noir was so mad at Scarabella, because for all he knew, she was evil and she was working with Hawkmoth and they had got her Miraculous. Why couldn't Marinette, before leaving the house, said, hey, I need to go to the bathroom before we go to the train station, transform into Ladybug and send him a quick text? We know she can text him or leave him a voicemail. We know she can do that. Like, so I was just like, why? I don't know, like, how did she ever think that Cat Noir would be okay with that? I don't know. Honestly, the reason why I dislike this episode slightly, it's not a bad episode, is due to Cat Noir's treatment. And I get it had to happen to highlight how Cat Noir is being frozen out by Ladybug. I get that, but it just does make me sad. Alia did do a great job though, which did make me enjoy the episode, and I did eventually like the way Cat Noir and Alia worked together as well. I get it. But it made me sad. I remember before Hacken came out, I made a video saying why I don't want Alia to use a Ladybug Miraculous. And the whole reason why I didn't want her to use Miraculous is because of Cat Noir's treatment and how it was going to get worse. Which I was right about. I remember I made a video after Optigami aired saying Cat Noir is being left out. And at least 75% of the comments were telling me, it's like, no, it's not happening, that's not a thing, that's not going to happen. And now we're here. Anyway, so I knew it was happening, so it just made me so sad that it was happening, so that was pretty much the whole reason why I didn't want Alia to use the Miraculous. Not because I hate her. I love Alia. I wish Alia was my sister. I love her so much. But this episode just makes me sad. So, it's not my favourite episode, but it's still a really well written episode. Good pacing, great relationship development in this. The only thing I'm questioning is that by the end, yeah, they've deakumatized Markov, but shouldn't the amok of Hacken still be affecting him and making him be in a bad mood? That was never addressed in the episode, so I don't know. In 10th place is episode 21, Dearest Family. This episode was so good. Even though there wasn't really a focus on Sabine in this episode, it was more about Marinette and Tiki. I felt like this episode was better for her as Chillin for Sabine. I was like, this was so much better for you. Although I did wish there was more kind of lore around Tiki and the charms, although I did feel like the charms were kind of more self-explanatory. I wanted to know more about Tiki and what was going on there. She had like that humanoid figure in like the pink mist or whatever. So I wish there'd been more about Tiki there. And whilst I did find that whole thing with her quite funny, especially when Marinette transforms and she's also hungry and she kind of goes like feral about it, I do kind of wonder why there wasn't like any repercussions after Dearest Family, because so Tiki had been darting around trying to find things to eat and the people of Paris said they'd seen this little red thing. So people have seen Tiki now. I know it's not the first time accidents have happened before, but it seems like a lot of people have seen Tiki, but there doesn't seem to have been any follow through from that. What are the repercussions of that? I don't know, but it had a good pacing to it, a good plot, and I love the Lady Noir relationship in this, which is why I'm so confused that Kuro and Echo comes 2 episodes after this, because they work so well together in Dearest Family. They were amazing together in Dearest Family and Chillin. So why is Kuro and Echo after this episode when they fall out? I don't get it. Doesn't make sense. In 9th place is episode 4, which is Mr. Pigeon 72. Now, I don't particularly mind, I know a lot of people do, but I personally don't mind some of the characters being reakumatized, usually because that episode is being used for a different purpose. And this purpose was about the charms, as well as about Marinette and Alia's relationship, with Plag also helping, which I really enjoyed. I really like when Plag gets a bit more screen time in the show. However, I do feel like Marinette's motivations in this episode were a bit odd, but I also guess don't know how else they would have done it, but I also disliked the stalking in the episode. I understand we needed a more comedic episode after Truth, Lies and Gang of Secrets, which were all quite kind of heavy in a way emotionally, with 2 breakups and then Marinette revealing her identity to Alia. I get it, so I don't mind it as much. So it's okay, and I did think the umbrella scene was beautiful, and then Adrian goes and bangs his head on the car. I did think it was lovely, and you cannot tell me that wasn't the start of Adrian starting to fall for Marinette. I know it's going to take him like half a century to work out that's what was happening in that episode, but that's definitely when it started to happen. But because he didn't accept the umbrella from her, he was like, no, I'm not ready for it yet. But like he's starting, he just hasn't accepted it yet, hence why he didn't accept the umbrella. I'm reading too far into the show. In 8th place is episode 3, which is Gang of Secrets. This was a really good opening. I like it, like I said before, how truth lies in Gang of Secrets, kind of 3 parts all together. And I liked how it focused more on Marinette's mental health by repeating the Akuma of the 5 girls. Like I said before, we usually get a repeat Akuma when we're trying to focus on something else in the show. And obviously the issue here was Marinette's mental health and the identity reveal, which I think was done all wonderfully. Like how tense she was when her friends arrived and she was like, oh, now I won't have to lie to anyone else, now I have no other friends. The emotions were so well done, the reveal was perfectly done. I just hope when the actual reveal happens, it's just as good as this, hopefully a bit more since it's like the big one. But yeah, I really liked this episode. In 7th place is episode 11, Guilt Trip. You all know how much I enjoy this episode. I talk about it all the time. It was such a good debut for Pig Ella. She was great. Rose was great in the episode just in general, and also the Adrianette in this episode. Beautiful. It was so good. Also had some really hilarious moments, and I actually quite liked the Amok in this episode. It was well placed with some good relationship stuff and character development. I liked it. I know it doesn't contribute to the overarching plots this episode, apart from Rose being Pig Ella, that's the only thing it really contributes, but I still think it was a pretty solid episode. And speaking of episodes that were good but don't really contribute to the overall plot, in 6th place we have episode 5, Psychomedia. I love this episode. It was well worth the wait. Well, I mean, I wish we'd seen it in chronological order, but it was still a really good episode. Although it could have been a lot less cringy. Marinette didn't need to have known the comedian. They could have all just been going on like a class trip to watch Harry Clown, and Adrian isn't sat next to Marinette in the audience, so the friends are trying to like rearrange everyone to get them sat together. It could have been done with a lot less secondhand embarrassment. However, when I watched this episode, comparing the secondhand embarrassment to Puppeteer 2, Puppeteer 2 still gives me nightmares. This is much better, much better. But I'm trying not to judge it too badly because it was meant to be fun and it really delivered on that front. It was a really fun episode, especially when Ladybug got like hit by Psychomedian's power. That was great. I really loved how Cat Noir came through and really looked after her, also really helped to save the day. He was great, also really showcased how Adrian is starting to fall for Marinette. Plus this episode takes place right after episode 4 and Mr. Pigeon 72, when I feel like it's confirmed he definitely does start to fall for her. Yeah, had a lot of cute moments, love the sewer scene as opposed to the sewer scene in Strike Back. That's gonna haunt me for the rest of my life. Yeah, I liked it. Could have been done less cringy, would have liked it more, would have been higher if it was less cringy, because they could have done without the secondhand embarrassment. But I thought it was a really solid episode, good pace. Yeah, it was great. So we're moving on to the top 5 now. So in my opinion, the 5th best episode of the season was episode 14, Scentsy Bubbler. This had an amazing plot, a really good showcase of characters and relationships. And I don't just mean Ladybug and Rena Furtive or just Marinette and Alia, but also Cat Noir and Ladybug, their relationship building up to starting to break down. It was great. Alia was amazing in the episode. Yeah, it was great. The only bad thing I have to say about this episode is that the Lucky Charm in this episode was absolutely useless. Like, alright, to catch a spider after the battle has ended, I get you need to have one to reverse all the damage, I get that, but it was just really pointless. I was like, what? That's the only bad thing I can think to say about this episode. I thought it was pretty great, to be honest. In 4th place is episode 15, Glaciator 2. And one thing I really liked about this episode was how they took the focus off the Akuma. Now, this is going to sound like a very strange statement to make, considering my favourite TV show is Miraculous Ladybug and is a TV show about superheroes, but I don't actually like things about superheroes. With the exception of Batman, Spider-Man and occasionally Superman, I don't particularly care for things about superheroes. I intensely dislike all of the Marvel superhero films I've seen, which is an unpopular opinion in itself, but it's definitely a weird opinion to have when my favourite TV show is about 2 teenagers who are superheroes in Paris. I know, I understand, I know it's weird, I think it's weird. So usually when I watch an episode, the parts of the episode I personally care about the most are the before and after the Akuma attack. Like, some Akuma attacks are very good, don't get me wrong, but it's just not the part of the episode I often enjoy. I enjoy episodes like Glaciator 2 when the focus is taken away from the Akuma, and it kind of really was because we've already seen Andre before as Glaciator. But the focus was taken away from him for Adrien and Marinette, or rather Marinette and Cat Noir, to develop their relationship a bit more. However, that being said, I really did dislike the treatment of Cat Noir in this episode, the way he was put in the a bin, in the trash. That was horrible. And also Marinette practicing her confession on him. I get that she doesn't view herself the same as Ladybug. Like, I feel like to her, Marinette and Ladybug are two different people. Like, I am not her, she is not me, but I can become her. But right now I am not her, I am Marinette. I get she feels that way. However, it is so insensitive of her to practice her confession on him. Like, it would be one thing if she didn't know he was in love with her. Fine, whatever. You don't know. It's not your fault. But she does know. I think I touched about this in my commentary. You do know he's in love with you. So why would you do that to him? Like, I know he doesn't know you're Ladybug, but I just feel like it is a bit cruel. However, that sequence when she was practicing on him and then he takes a turn, that was hilarious. I love the exploration of their relationship in this episode. It was great. Kagami as well, as much as I hate her, was also hilarious. I really liked her in this episode, actually. Wasn't a big fan of the Adrien in this episode, and I also really liked the one scene we got of Adrien and his dad. We don't usually get to see them interact a lot because Gabriel is afraid of other people. But yeah, and I just thought it was great. Just this season, I know we were meant to, I just felt so bad for Cat Noir, like, all the way through basically. I just feel like she should have told him her identity in Gang of Secrets. I know it would be dangerous, but he's there for her all the time, no matter how she treats him. I understand it's dangerous, but at this point I'm like, out of everyone, you deserve to know, mate. So, yeah. In third place is episode 18, Wishmaker. This episode had a great message about, like, not knowing what you want to do in the future. Been there, done that. I'm still there and still doing that. It's something pretty much everyone feels. I have met very few people who have known what they want to do, and those people, like, they are, if you ever meet one, you'll probably not meet another one for a while. There are very few people who know what they want to do, especially when they're Marinette and Adrien's age at like 14. So it had a great message. I really liked how the episode addressed this. It had a really good pace. The reveal was wonderful. This episode also had some iconic moments with Mr. Cucumber, Crocodile, sorry I forgot his name. It was great, and Luca was also amazing in this episode. Also loved the violin scene. Oh my god. And even when I rewatched this episode has so much rewatchability, which is one thing I really like about this episode, which is why it's so high. Even though I know Luca's about to find out who Ladybug and Cat Noir are, even though I know that, I'm still getting excited, I'm still getting goosebumps, I'm still... yeah. Even now just thinking about rewatching Wishmaker makes me excited. This episode was amazing. Now for second and for first place, there are two episodes left. We have Risk and Strike Back. And I am going to rank them, just please let me explain first. I think both of these episodes are amazing. They both have a great plot, great character development, great relationship development, great pacing, great dialogue. They are both absolutely amazing episodes. There are a couple of things I question in each of them, but those things that I question, unlike in other episodes, for example like in Kuroneko, doesn't dampen my enjoyment of the episode, and I don't think takes away from the writing in the episode. These two episodes are so incredibly well written. I love them. They are probably two of the best written episodes of the entire show, I would argue. However, the way I'm going to rank them is going to come down to my own personal enjoyment. So one thing I love about Miraculous is that the episodes are so short, and I can easily watch a 20-minute Miraculous episode on a break from doing PhD work. I can't watch a full episode of Bridgerton on a break from my PhD work because Bridgerton is like an hour long. I cannot feasibly take an hour-long break until I'm about to go to bed, but I can, you know, allow myself to take 20 minutes to watch an episode of Miraculous. And there is one of these episodes that I would watch on a break more than I would the other one, because of how much I enjoy it and because of the Love Square content. So for that reason, in second place is Strike Back and in first place is Risk. And like I said, solely down to the Love Square content. Strike Back also in general is a more depressing and emotional episode, and whilst it's very good, it's not very fun, you know what I mean? It doesn't make me that happy to watch it. It's a well written episode, but it doesn't bring me that much joy. Whereas Risk does bring me some joy. It sparks joy for me because of the Adrianettes in the episode. That is the only two things between the episodes. Like, don't get me wrong, I love the ending scene of Strike Back. It is beautiful. But I just personally get far more enjoyment out of watching Risk. That's it. That's the only reason why Risk is first and not Strike Back. Because I enjoy it more. Because of Adrianette, basically. And because the Adrianette is done really well, and it's lovely, and it's not really cringy at all. That is the only reason why Risk is first over Strike Back. But that is not to say I think Strike Back is a terrible episode, because I think Strike Back is incredibly well written. I just personally get more personal joy out of rewatching Risk than out of rewatching Strike Back. I watched them both last night and I was smiling the whole time I was watching Risk, and I was kind of frowning the whole time I was watching Strike Back. Not because it's bad, but because it makes me feel sad. That's it. That's the only reason Risk is first, because of my own personal enjoyment. Wow, that took a while. I wasn't expecting it to take that long. My voice is dead. So that's what I would rank all of the episodes from this season, besties. Overall, I thought it was a pretty solid season, but I'm going to do another video, like a commentary on the season as a whole, talking about things like structure and relationship development, character development. I've got a load of notes, just need to put it together and probably like write a mini essay plan for it before I can sit down and film it, because I want to talk about a lot of stuff in that video. But yeah, that's why I would rank all the episodes. If you do not agree with me, and I know none of you will, that is okay. I would love to know where you would rank all of the episodes, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!